So we'll go ahead and get started. You guys got several emails this week, and thank you to Kara for helping with that. We had some time miscommunication. We may talk about that at the end of the class and just make sure 6:30 works, or if we want to bump it up a little bit, whatever we may do. Pizza, thanks to Brent and Robin, appreciate that. Thank you for bringing that. Yeah, it's all good. Um, and I just want to go over a few things. One of the other emails, you probably saw an invitation come out. Hopefully you did, from Canvas Instructure. And it is where I'm going to be locating all of the files and any kind of coursework communication that you'll need to get through things. And what I wanted to do really quick was just navigate through that a little bit. So when you get that, you can click on the link, go in, create your account. And when you log in, you'll be presented with something that looks like this. Um, I didn't test that to see how well that was going to work. Um, but it will look something like this when you come in. It may be very intimidating. It's not meant to be intimidating. It's just where I can get links out to YouTube files to the recording of this class, other materials that we'll use here. If you go into the reference files and look at it right off the bat and pull these up, you're going to freak out and decide you don't want to come. So don't go there. That's exactly what happened with one of our students today. They went in, they opened up verb paradigms. They're like, and trust me, I see the verb paradigms and I'm like, it's overwhelming. But don't worry about those things right now. They're just there to give you some information. One of the things that is in here is the vocabulary, and that's really out of everything that we do, vocabulary is essential. I mean, so you're going to learn some words. There's just nothing that we can do about that. I wasn't sure, Grace, if you'd be willing to volunteer if I gave you a format of Excel ready to go into Quizlet. If you'd be willing to create some Quizlets for me, I could let you into my account and then you can put those in so that people who want to use Quizlet for vocabulary, they can. So we may have a few more emails coming out through the week that will give you some apps and some tools to use that will help you rehearse. If you have an email address, I would love to have it, and then I can put you on that. So, there we go. There we go. So for this week, which is just week one, here I put together some goals to look through. And really, it's really the first 2 to 4 weeks that we're looking at for this session. And it's just the basics. And you're going to feel like you're kind of back as a 4-year-old, 3-year-old, 5-year-old, where you're learning an alphabet, you're learning some vowels, you're learning the language, because that's what it kind of takes. Yes, we are.
Special rule.
There are special rules within the Hebrew language that you're going to need to know, just like in English. Like you put words, nouns, and verbs and adverbs and those kind of things in certain orders so that you can make a sentence. Those are some of the special rules. But the special rules we're going to look at have to do with just mainly the alphabet and some vowels and how you sound out words and pronunciation. So my goal is by week 4, this is like the critical time. This is the critical time. If you can commit the vocabulary, not the vocabulary, the alphabet, the vowels, and some of the special rules, and we'll learn about how to do syllables probably week 3. Then by week 4, you should be able to see a biblical Hebrew text and read it. Now you'll sound like a kindergartner reading, and it will feel weird, but you'll be able to read it out loud. You may not know all the words yet. That's okay, because the vocabulary is the whole key to this. But by week 4, you should have about 60 words in your vocabulary that you have been introduced to, and you'll start to recognize some of them. And so that's my goal, is that you may be able to read it. You might not understand it. That's okay. I don't expect you to. But the sound of the language is really important. And so that's really kind of the goal here of the first month, is to get a few things memorized absolutely stone cold, so that by week 4, when you see it, you know it. You don't have to think about what it is. You can just sound it out as you move along through the text. So that's really that goal. And we'll be working on that. If you've never been to Quizlet, You've used Quizlet. I know I have. Has anybody else in the room used Quizlet? A few more down here. Awesome. You've used it as well. Great. That's okay. I have a couple of Quizlet that I just wanted to show you what it will look like when you, if you use the web version. There's an app version for Android and iOS as well. And within Quizlet, it just allows you to load some things in. So in this case, when I was first learning, I loaded in the Alephbet. So I could have the letter over here, what its pronunciation is, and what its name is. And so I could go through and begin to learn this. And you can just cycle through them as flashcards to start to get this through your mind. And so we'll share that with you with the class. You'll get some invitations for that. And then my vocabulary did the same thing. Each week I would put in my vocabulary and I would go through and just start to memorize the words. And we'll do the same thing for the vocabulary in this class. We'll put them in so that you don't have to load them. We'll put them in for you. You just have to go get them and put them in. And then just while you're sitting at home, you're pretending to work, you want to, whatever it may be, you can go through and learn your vocabulary. Because that is really the second most important thing is to know your vocabulary. If you don't know the words, it won't matter that you can pronounce it. You won't be able to understand it. So that's really what I wanted to cover here at the beginning. I'll pause for just a second and see if you guys have any questions about that yet. Any questions? You feel overwhelmed yet? Yes, you do. Don't. It's okay. There's fewer letters in this alphabet than the English one. Yes.
What does that?
Which one? This letter, this word is low. Low. It means no or not. It's a negative particle. Is what that one is.
Good question.
Yes.
How this was not planned today. How is learning Hebrew deep in your faith?
Oh, I should have actually made sure everybody knew everybody in the class. But I think everyone knows everyone, right? Here?
I know.
Yeah. Think so? All right. So for me, it started as a bit of a nerd desire, and then it turned into an academic desire to get some credits because I wanted to finish up do some different had educational goals. But more than that, I wanted to be able to experience the Hebrew Bible as someone like an ancient Hebrew would have experienced it. That's what I wanted. And I had no idea what I was getting into. What I discovered is it started to unwind parts of my belief system, some that were very core. And that was really uncomfortable. Once you can begin to navigate the text, it really challenged a lot of uh, preconceived notions I'd had since I was a teenager. And then I didn't let that stop me. I allowed that to become a motivation to learn more and begin to see the text for what it is. And what happened for me is there were a few things that became much less important. So, for example, not to create any, drama, but the arguments about the time frame of creation, was it 6 days, was it 6,000 years, was it whatever, started to disappear and not even matter. Because when you're engaging in the Hebrew text and you're thinking like an ancient Israelite, you can tell that this is not what they're talking about. There's something even a little further beyond that. I learned that when it comes to anything prophecy, well, if you read in Isaiah that this is going to happen here and there and this time and that and that and that, the moment you get into poetic prophecy, all of the rules you're going to learn in this year are essentially thrown out because the prophets don't adhere to grammar the way that you expect it in narrative. And so it could mean this is going to happen first. It could mean it's already happened. So all of a sudden, this whole prophetic thing just sort of crumbled, and you begin to understand that these authors are trying to communicate something different. So for me, every time I open up the Hebrew Bible now, it is like reading it for the first time again every single time. And I appreciate that because it's brought a lot of humility to me in that section. Um, and last, I'd say you can begin to see if you were here for Sunday school, which you guys were here for Sunday school. Um, I took that opportunity to show some of the connectedness in the Hebrew, and you'll begin to see that when you learn certain words and you see them appear at certain points in the Hebrew Bible, you'll think, "Oh, wait, they use that over here. I remember reading about that." And then you look in your English Bible and it's something completely different. And that's not to say the translations are wrong, but it's just giving you um, helping you see some of the connections that these authors did. Um, if you're a listener to the Bible Project, you know that Tim talks about how this is a grand narrative that's been woven together, and these authors are geniuses for putting together what they did. I can tell you, he's absolutely right. It is. This is a book that came together over well over 1,000 years by who knows how many authors and editors that without word, without electronics, without any of the modern tools we have today, were able to put this thing together, these 39 books, scrolls together in such a way that it just makes sense. And that is amazing. The the language of the last temple of the 300 and 400 year BC is slightly different than that of 800, 900 BC. The grammar had changed. There's new words in the language. You can see it show up. And so there's this long, rich history of this text coming together. And I think that's what I've appreciated most out of that. Yes.
Are we gonna write?
You will do some writing. Yes. Yes, you will. Not much. It's mainly to help you learn the language. So thank you for that. Yes, I know. I know. So, any other questions before we jump in? Don't feel overwhelmed. It's a little scary. You're going to feel like you're going back to grade school. Jump in if you have questions or anything along the way. And you can do this. I will tell you, I have in my classes, I have had people who are in their 18, 19, 20, and I've had people in their 80s in all of the classes I've been taking. So if you put your mind to it, you can learn the language. And if you are of a little older age, learning a language is one of the very best ways to keep your mind sharp. And it's actually an Alzheimer preventer. It's an Alzheimer preventer to do that. So are you saying he has? No, I'm not going to go there. So let's so let's jump in to just kind of get cruising through this so we can at least get to the alphabet today. Um, this we're going to memorize two texts as we move through this class. One is the text out of Genesis, Genesis 1, verses 1 through 5, and Deuteronomy 6, 4 through 9. That's the Shema. And that's not something you're going to do quickly. That'll be something that's sort of a goal as we get 5 or 6 months through this. Then you'll have a chance to recite that. But committing some Hebrew to memory helps you keep it in mind. And so right now I've put up here a Hebrew word because you're at the very beginning, and this is actually the beginning right here. This word that you see, Bereshit. It's the first word of the Hebrew Bible. You know the translation as "in the beginning," and so this is your Bereshit right now that we're at. It's the genesis of this little journey that you're going to take. And this is actually 3 verses of the passage that you'll be highly motivated to learn. And if you look at this right now, it's probably a little overwhelming. Does anything? Do you recognize anything of that at all? I'm guessing. Jay was in Israel for a while, so there might be a few things. Well, I do. Yes. Yep. Language. Yep. Yep. You can tell that. So there's a few little things in here. This is Genesis 1 verses 1 through 3 right here. And there are some parts about this language we're going to learn. I'll give you just a tad bit of history so we know what we're dealing with. But just so you have an idea as to how it sounds, I can read a little bit just so you kind of get a sense of the flow. And I'll try to follow along as I go. Bereshit, bara, Elohim. What do you think that says? You know your first. In the beginning, God did what?
Read it.
Created. That's that first little section. And what did he create it? He created the Et HaShamayim, the heavens, and Va'et Haaretz, the earth. And so, interestingly enough, in the first verse here, you have 7 words, and 2 of these words are not necessary in Hebrew grammar. So the author, right off the bat, is throwing a few things out here just to kind of start some numerology within the text. This little et right here and this little et right here are actually not necessary in this verse. And et is actually part of your vocabulary. It's a direct object marker. It tells you the object of the sentence, what the act is, what is receiving the action. Yes. Okay, no problem. So you should, at when we get to week 4, be able to read this. It will be slow and you'll feel awkward, but reading and interacting with the text is actually really it. If you want, I can read the rest or we can move on. What would you like? It's up to you if you want to hear more. No? Yes. All right. So verse 2, Vahaaretz, that's the earth. Hayata tohu vavohu. So this is the earth was tohu vavohu, waste and void, or unformed and unfilled. It's a hard word to figure out. These 2 words are not used very often. And choshek, that's darkness, was al paneh, on the face of the deep, tehom. We know these verses, right? You've heard this. And the ruach, the spirit of Elohim, that's God, marahephet, was hovering, al paneh. You see this repeated word, over the waters. You'll be able to do this, I promise you. Memorize the alphabet, memorize your vowels, memorize syllabus. You'll be able to read it. You may not know what it means yet, but reading is really important. So that's what we're going to get into as we move through. Brief.
That second sentence. Whoa.
It was 12. Yeah.
This one.
Yeah. You'll find these rhythms in the text that happen all the time. In fact, I didn't do this. I wanted to, wasn't sure if I wanted to do it, but within this very first word, this word Bereshit, there's problems right off the bat. Immediately in the first word, there's challenges in the Hebrew language, but we're going to talk about that in a moment. So I wanted to let you know, you asked that question, what's drawn me into this? Well, I think the text is a bit alive. It has a somewhat of a mind of its own. It's very fluid. You need to think in pictures. The Hebrew language is a pictorial language. It's vivid. It allows you some ability to play with it. And the reason why is right down here. And for those of you in the back, it might be a little far away, but uh, way back when, 1500 BC and older, we communicated using pictures as humans. You've seen them if you've watched any shows on TV for like Egypt and that. You'll see these hieroglyphs. The hieroglyphs are not photos that are trying to give you a, this picture, this picture, this picture, and tell you a story. The hieroglyphs are there to represent the sound of a letter. That's why the hieroglyphs are there. So we have an alphabet that represents the sound of a letter. And so they started back in the ancient days with this little thing that looks like, who's close enough to see this? What does that look like right there? Kind of an ox head, a bowl. And that's exactly what it was. That's exactly what it was. And apparently the word for bowl back in this time started with an aleph sound. And so if you wanted that A aleph sound to come out, you would do a picture of a bowl. And eventually it would move to kind of this Proto Hebrew where it changed up its form just a little bit. And then they would eventually get to a point where they have this block letter system. And as it turns out, a few of these characters you'll see went on to Greek and then eventually into our Latin alphabet that we have today. So a number of these characters transitioned, and this was a surprise when I learned it, that they were almost 3,500 to 4,000 years old. The same alphabet we use today is really just a pass down from history. We've just changed the forms and how we form words. Now, there are some you can YouTube online, and there are some people that will tell you that these symbols have some deeper, greater meaning to the language. They don't. They're just symbols. Like this little thing that looks like a square. What do you think would represent a square way back in the day? Oh, a house. That's exactly right. Which, as it turns out, is the name of this character. It's Bet, which is house. Bite is house. What does this little guy look like right here? Poppy, I'll let you answer this one. What does this one look like? That little thing.
Um, shark, dolphin, or dead fish.
A dead fish. That's right. Dead fish. Looks a little bit like a fish, doesn't it? Yeah. And as it turns out, the word for fish is dog, but this letter is actually a dalet. And so they just use these. Sein is a hand. The the cough right here, the word cough means palm of a hand or sole of a foot. And you can see it looks like a little bit like a foot, hand over here, or a chicken foot.
I always think that too. Yeah,
A little bit. The mem, or we saw in there the mayim. What does this look like to you? No, think of what you were drawing on the board. What does it look like to you?
it looks like um. So it either is waves or that hot.
Waves. It's waves. That's exactly right. And what makes waves?
The ocean.
That's right, water. And so mayim is a word for water. And this word, the letter's name here is mem. And so you can see this is how the history of the language comes together and how we end up with our language today. So this history runs really, really deep and really long. We've already kind of covered some of this. So we won't get into too much. I will say, if you having some kind of a handle on English grammar will help. I did not realize how important that was going to be as I came into Hebrew, because I felt very much like I was back in first, second, third grade again. So we're going to be using terms like prepositions and adverbs and adjectives and some of those kind of things as we get later in. So go to YouTube, take a few refreshers on English grammar, or call Grace. She's in college. We'll get it to you. We'll get it to you. So we've already been through that. We'll get to the alphabet here. So let's just jump into it so we can kind of get through some of the sounds today. And then I'll take you back. We'll close at the student locker at the Canvas, and I'll show you a chart I've put together so that you can reference this. You can go back and see the sounds and practice them. And there's a link to the song in there too, the YouTube song. We could do the song. Absolutely, we could. I gave it to Brent and Robin months ago, so they should be able to sing it. So.
Do Grace. Grace now then. I don't.
All right, so let's come through these. So this is the Hebrew alphabet that we're going to be looking through, and we'll just start right here. And the reason you've got some notebooks, and the reason we're going to talk about doing some writing, is when you write the letters out, if you write them and say their name and say the sound as you practice it, it should only take you about a week or two to get these committed into your memory. And then we've got a song for you that will absolutely ruin you, and you will never forget it again. You just won't. So just like it's close to that, but worse. So our first letter here is what's called an aleph. In fact, I'll say the name and then I want you to say it with me. Aleph. Aleph. All right, I want you to pay attention to that very first movement in your throat and the sound. Notice how that's almost silent. The aleph is silent. It's actually just a stop. You would just stop in your throat. Kind of like, oh. It's that stop between that word. That's the aleph. So it's actually a silent letter. But it's an actual letter. You have to have it in the system. So aleph. Say it one more time. Aleph. Aleph.
Aleph.
Aleph. Yep. Aleph. Aleph.
Native writes. Miss, they write from right to left.
Yes. Yep.
Then how important are like little?
Yeah, I was just gonna ask that. The little squib. Like,
Writing not as important until you get to letters that are easily confused.
Okay.
So you probably will, if you've looked at this for any length here at the moment, you'll see there are some letters that are very easy to confuse, like this one, and then you'll see there's some down here that are very similar, but we're going to cover all of that as we come through. You think it's this easy, but Hebrew doesn't make it quite that easy. This is the whole alphabet. This is it. It's in the login for Canvas. Yep.
so this after tonight.
Mhm. Yep.
Okay.
It's on there too. Yeah, this is a PDF of this slide deck is there too. Yeah, when you log into Canvas, it's all there in week 1. And then a recording of this class will be there too for you. So, we're just gonna go through it, and then, yeah, you've gotta go home and learn it this week. So, don't be afraid of it. It's pretty easy. Let's do the next one. It's bet. Bet. All right, there's a different version of this letter we're gonna look at, but we're just gonna learn the name, which is bet. Let's do the next one. Gimel. Gimel. What do you think the gimel sound is? G. That's exactly right. What do you think the bet sound is? B. You're starting to see how it works. You know the name of the letter, you're gonna know the sound it makes. Dalet. Dalet. Sound of that would be a D. D. He. He. You'll hear some other people say it's a hey. Hey works as well. I like to learn this one as a hey because it's a way to remember some things about this letter. This is a problem letter. Like you never know who's saying hey. It can do some things to you. So heh, and it makes a h sound, just the H sound. This one is vav. Vav. And it makes what sound do you think? V. That's right. Yes.
Is the alphabet backwards too?
Yes. We're going from right to left. This one is Zain. Zain makes a Z sound. It is very much like that. This one is you've heard of the composer Bach? That last part, the h that you make? That's what this one is. It's a pet. Pet. Can
It's like
you
rolling your eyes.
it's a little bit like that. Pet. If you can't make the sounds back there like you're hawking a loogie, Wayne, you've got this one, right? Pet. If you can't, you can just do kind of a soft C, like a soft C, where you don't close your throat entirely. But it's het. Very similar, easily confused with the hey. You notice the hey has this little opening here. The het does not have the opening. They are two different letters. And so its sound is het. Het. That's its sound. It's okay. You can practice. Sometimes if you're mad, if you kind of think of like a New York, Orthodox who's like, you can kind of, they're angry with some person on the street. You kind of get that. I don't know if Robin's parents were able to do that.
So,
The, yep, just like our Z. Mhm. Tet. Tet. All right. This one can get confused with this one down here called a tav, but we'll get to that in a minute. So tet is T. It's just a T sound. That's it. Yod. Yod. And it's just the y sound. It's a Y sound.
Yeah.
A little bit. All right. We have another one of those. This is called a haf. Haf. Just like the het, but it's a haf. 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 Now, we get into a slightly weird situation where you see there's two coughs here. There's this little guy, and then there's this one that looks very much like the Dalet, doesn't it? But this cough, this version goes below the writing line. It's longer. It will extend below the line. And this cough will only show up at the end of a word. So if there's a cough at the end of the word, this is the mark you're going to see. And it's very common. It's very, very common. You'll just get used to seeing it and you'll know that it's not a Dalet. So that's why reading is important. Getting into the text, reading through it, you'll start to be able to pronounce it and see it. So these final, and you'll see there's 5 final letters that show up at the end of a word. So it's the same way. They're same pronunciation, same everything. Huh. All right. Now we're into the element, the lamed. Lamed, which makes what sound? La. Mem. Mem. and it has a final form. So when it shows up at the end of a word, it will take on this form. It's very similar to this one, but it'll take on a final form. Noon. Noon. It too has a final form, and you can see where this could be a problem. The final noon looks a little bit like a vav, looks a little bit like a zayin. See how it can get a little confusing. So when you ask the question, are the little hooks and all that matter? Yes. Yes, they do. They matter. Otherwise, it'll be hard to read. And I can promise you, after 3 years of doing this, I still will see a letter sometimes and I'll get confused. It just happens. Just kind of like
Yeah, this probably makes more sense to you because you're like,
Yeah.
"Well, that doesn't look like."
one of the keys is reading out loud because you'll hear it. And that'll become important in vocabulary. This language is one that's very much a spoken and heard language. So when you can get over the embarrassment of reading out loud to yourself, you'll begin to catch something and go, oh, that doesn't sound right. It doesn't seem to connect well. So this little guy, again, easily confused with what? A mem, right? It's got a little swoopy on the bottom down here. This is samak. 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 S sound for that one. I don't know if any of you notice this. LMN, kind of like our alphabet. LMN. But this isn't an O. All right, another guttural. This one's a tough one. This is ein.
I
Ein. Can you do a pirate? Ar. Ar. Except in this case, you're going to do ein. Okay. This is another one that stops. This letter is silent. This is a silent letter. So we have 2 silent letters so far. What was the first one? Aleph is silent. It's a stop. Oh, it's that stop. The ein is another silent one. And the ein is when you bring the sound to a stop. Hello. It's that stop of the sound. Now it is. It's another one. So the ein is a silent letter, but an important one. And if you were with somebody from the Middle East, they would be able to teach you how to pronounce it. But it's just not, these aren't sounds that we use in our English language. So they're not ones that we really access very often. This aleph and this ayin, there is a pronunciation for them. That's an ancient one, but we aren't 100% sure exactly what it sounded like. But in Arabic, they have an aleph and an ayin type characters, and they still pronounce it. So that's where we get a sense of what it probably is. Very close. Hebrew is actually and Arabic. Arabic was East Semitic. Hebrew is West Semitic, but they came from the same Canaanite family. Yes.
is the ph and like the ch. It's the same thing in Peru.
Kind of. But in this case, no. Pay. Pay.
Okay.
There's another final one right here. I think this is an easier one. He's got his little circle right here. Looks a little bit like a P. And then when it's in the final of a word, it just unwraps and extends down below the line. And again, they only did this so that you knew this was the end of the word. In ancient scrolls, they didn't always put spaces in. And so they had to give you some help on where the words and sentences end. Yeah.
Just of these letters, are they basically the equivalent of a period or a comma or an exclamation?
We wouldn't really have an equivalent. Our equivalent would be a space between words.
Okay.
That would be our equivalent would be a space.
Is there punctuation?
There is in the Hebrew we're going to be dealing with.
Okay.
Yes. But it's nothing like what we kind of have to figure it out. But yes, there is. Next one here. Can you say cats?
Yeah.
Okay, catch that last part of the ts, ts. That's what this is. Sade. Sade. Sade.
T silent.
Not really. You just do
Hot.
put your tongue on the top of your roof of your mouth and then say nest. Sa. Sa. Yeah. So instead of going, you put a little t in front of it. Sade. It also has a final form where this little hook you see right here just unwraps. Just unwraps. This is where I get confused. Even today, cough, cough. If I'm spelling out a word in class, I don't always remember my cough from my cough. But this little guy right here is called a cough. Cough. Just a hard C sound. Cough. All right. For all you R rollers, resh. You can roll wherever you want or not roll. If you can roll in the back of your throat, resh. You can do that. If you need to roll in the front, resh. You can roll there, or you can just say It's fine. Is fine. Back of their throat. Resh. Yeah, and it's fast. It's fast and happens quickly. So resh. I do usually the tongue in the front. It's just easier. All right, we have two here that y'all recognized as being problematic because they're two different letters. One is sin, one is shin. And here's what I can say is you see one's on the left side, one's on the right side. Sin is never right. Sin is never right. Okay? Sin is always on the left. Just like those left-leaning sinners. Right? All right. So however you want to try to remember it. But sin, let's say that one together. Sin. Sin. And it's just an S sound. Shin. Shin. And that's the sh sound. And then tav. Tav. Just a T sound. All right. So we can try a little musical action behind this if you think we can pull it off. I can start and you guys can follow.
Show it.
Oh, you want me to show it? All right, we can do that. Yep.
We have the same sounds like
If it's yes and no, actually. So we'll hold on that because nope, go ahead.
Do you have two tops?
Yes. Tet
Fine.
and tav. And you have two S sounds, samak and sin.
Coke makes me think more.
Yes.
What are those square lines?
To indicate which ones can have final form letters.
Okay,
Like at
and,
the end of it.
and then which one? Like where are the vowel?
Oh, that is a great question. I am so excited you asked that. We'll get to do that next week. All right, there are 6 letters you need to pay attention to. I've given a little mnemonic up here. We can say it together. Bagad, kafat. Bagad, kafat. These are problem letters. Wait, I'll get there. These are problem letters because they behave a little differently in the Hebrew language. And we just need to be aware of their existence because they can change sounds. These letters in the ancient days had different versions of sounds attached to them. And here's what would happen. If you noticed in that verse we looked at, you'd see some of the letters would have this little dot in the middle of it, and some wouldn't have a dot. Well, that dot means something. It's called a dagesh. You can say that if you want, dagesh, or you can just call it a dot. I'm good with that too. But it changes a few things. Back in the old ancient days, if you had a dagesh or a dot in the letter, you would pronounce it b as in boy. But if you had no dagesh, it was open, it would be v like Victor. And this kind of makes sense. If you can think of the dot, the dagesh is sort of like a plug. If you go ahead and just make the V sound, just make it. You know how you have air flowing through your mouth to make that? But to make a B sound, let's start with a V and then change to a B. B. See how you have to close your mouth and plug it to get the B sound out. And so that's a way to think about that little dot dagesh. Now, here's the good news. It only changes a couple of the letter sounds, right? So it does change the sound of a bet. Here, if it has a dagesh in it, it's b for boy. If it doesn't, it's v for Victor. The good news is these are in the song you'll learn. They're in the song you'll learn, okay? Does anybody remember the name of this letter by chance? I have two. I have the nerds at the end of the table. Yes. Gimel. That's right. Gimel. And what sound does it make? G. That's right. G. And it does not change in sound. But back in an ancient speaker's language, it did. One would be G and the other would be G. That's how they would do it. But today we don't worry about that. But you still need to know this begad kafaf because it changes how the words work. Dalet, the D sound, no change. Whether it has a dot or not, doesn't change. But the kaf does. If it has a dagesh in it, it's k. It's a hard k sound. But if it's open, you let that air through. K. K. All right. So just think of that like a plug, like a bathtub plug. Does anybody remember this letter? Oh, it's so close. You feel like you know it, don't you? It's pay. And when it has a dot in it, it's a p, like a pie. But when it doesn't, it's f, like fee, foot. So it opens up. It lets that air come through. Does anybody remember this letter? The second of the T sounds. Tav. Good job, Tav. And it doesn't change sound with that. So there's only this little guy right here. Let me mark him up again. Actually, I can just, we'll just mark him up. So the pay will change from p to f. The kaf will change from k to ch. And the bet will change. And this is the most common one you're going to see. From a b boy to v Victor. You look stressed. Because the languages come from thousands of years and it matters on spelling. You'll have to figure out which word you're dealing with, and these dots can tell you which word you have and which word you don't. But ancient, so ancient, I see your hand there. Ancient would be like the gimel, g, the dollar would be the, almost like a the sound. And so they had the tav would be a t or the sound. So they're a part of the language, but today you don't need to worry about it. Those are the only ones you really need.
I just want to verify this chart is going from this sound. So it's
You-
the language goes right to left, but is this chart right to left too?
Can be. Sure. It doesn't really matter. It's just to show you the difference.
The other way.
It's just going to show you the difference between with a dagesh, with a dot, and without.
The sound goes from the B to the B.
Or from a V to a B. It's just whenever you see a bet without a dot, you know it's a V for Victor.
I need to change the slide. Sure. Let a T at the bottom. No change.
Which?
Gold, you have no change.
Oh, yes. Thank you. Thank you. We'll make that edit for sure. Thank you very much. All right. Again, this is going to all be there. It'll take you a little while to get this together. We'll go over it and review it when we get back together.
Well, like it wouldn't have a difference in words either.
For the bet, for the kaf, and for the pay, yes. In modern Hebrew as well. Yep.
Okay.
Otherwise, you have no f sound. You have no f sound.
Oh, but the ones that mark change, like they don't be
Same, both the same way. Yep. Modern Hebrew ditches a ton of rules just to make it easy. So, no. This is biblical Hebrew. But when you're done, you'll pick up enough in in modern Hebrew, you can kind of figure out what's going on.
I assume they don't have any end letters.
Which ones?
End letters, where it's the same one.
No, they do. Absolutely. Yeah, I've got a Hebrew keyboard up here, and yeah, it has all the final forms they still use. Yep. All right. And again, these are just categories. You've learned these letters. In fact, we'll just ask really quick. Does anybody remember what this little guy is? Aleph. What sound does it make? Nope. No sound. It's silent. It's a trick. It's a trick. Does anybody remember this one? Heh or hey. How about this guy? He was a famous composer.
Shin. Sin.
Should we go back and see? Which
Sin.
one is it? It's this guy right here. It's a cat. Okay. And what about this guy? You got to keep your ein on this one. Which, by the way, ein is the word for eye. And it's silent. Yep. And what about this little guy right down here? Kind of a pirate letter. Resh. Resh. So I want you to learn, you don't need to pay attention to what's in the column. That's fine. This is all good information to know down here. You don't need to memorize it right now. But we have the alphabet, and we have a couple of groups of letters. So we had the first one, which was the Bagad Kafat, the Bagad Kafat group. These are called gutturals because they happen in the guttural part of your throat. And these words create some problems in pronunciation, especially when you start talking about vowels. So like, how do you associate certain vowel sounds with a letter that makes no sound? And it will cause certain changes to happen along the way. And so you don't need to learn anything other than an aleph, a hey, a chet, an ayin, and a resh are gutturals. That's all. They just fall under their own little category. And you'd like to think that we were done, but there's another group that you don't even need to worry about this right now, but just be aware. There are another group of letters. Notice they're kind of the gutturals. They cause a lot of problems in the language because they don't have a lot of sound. They don't make a lot of sound. Like there's no vocal sound to it. The aleph, there's no vocal sound. They start to create problems, and they fall into a class called weak letters, and they will start to bother us in about week 10 or week 11. They'll start to cause us a few problems. But I wanted to give the information to you so you can start to commit. The alphabet, its final forms, right? The Bagad Kafat, these letters that can take a dagesh and change the sound. The gutturals that happen back over here in the throat. And then these group of weak letters, which includes essentially all of the gutturals. But they do some strange things to us that we'll see. So that's in there. That'll be when you log in, you can get to those and start to look at them. The other thing, we won't go over this tonight, but I've included in the deck, which you have access to online, how to write the letters. And it's essentially what you saw. And my suggestion is that you just take some time, take 10 or 15 minutes each day. You don't have to do it very long, and just write the alphabet out. Say the letter as you do it. Aleph, bet, b, the, gimel, g.
Then it has down.
What's that?
Yeah.
Yes. Yep. Yeah. You can get access to this recording. Yep. But I've just put these slides in for reference for you so you know how to write them out. You won't do a lot of writing. It's really just helpful for you to learn how to remember your alphabet. If you thought all the way back to grade school, you would learn your alphabet to say it, and then what's the next thing you'd learn to do? Write it. You'd write it, and that's how it gets committed into memory. All right, who's ready for a quick test? No, not you. Oh my goodness. All right, so let's just do a quick little test here. Remember, we read right to left. So I'll read this little first one here. You don't know this yet, but this is a vowel, and it's the U vowel. It's oo. That's how that one's pronounced. And so if we take this gimel, which is g, and this dalet, D, D, and we put it together, we would say good. Good. Boots. Good. Good. All right. So I've given you the vowel on this one. So who would like to give a shot here for this word? And these are not Hebrew words. These are just Hebrew sounds that make words that sound like there's something to us. So this first letter, what is this one? That's a hey. What sound does it make?
Huh.
And so I've given you the vowel. So it'd be an H here. And
Hey.
what's this tricky one right here? Notice it extends final noon. And what sound is what? So if we read this way, it would be hen,
Hen.
like a chicken that lays an egg. Now, this is not a Hebrew word. We're just sounding them out so you kind of know how they get put together. All right. This letter right here, who knows this one?
Nintendo.
I know. I've put the little screen up over here so you can get a little sheet reference. Lamed. That's right. What sound does it make? L. And this guy right here is what? It is a tet. You are correct. So this is not, again, grammatical spelling, but if we pronounce this out, this would be late, which I don't think any of you were to class. Late. That's how you would say that. Late. This is an actual Hebrew word. What's this first letter? D as in Dalet. That's right. What's this letter?
Um,
It's a Vav. Exactly right. And that represents which? V. And what's this last letter? Dalet. That's right.
What's T underneath the letter?
David.
That's a vowel, which we'll get to next week.
David.
So you would pronounce this David.
Da-
David.
David.
We say it is David, but this is actually the name of David. Does anybody happen to know what David's name is?
No.
My beloved?
Beloved.
Oh, yeah.
Yep. All right. We have one here. This letter. Gimel. So that's a G, right? I've ignore the yod right here. It's part of the vowel. What's this guy right here? This one right here.
Custard.
The tav.
Oh, tab.
Tav,
Tab.
which makes what sound? T. What's that last letter? What's its name? Resh. That's right. It makes an R sound. Which, if you're a Florida fan, you should be good.
Tour. That is
Cool. Okay. So on the right side, these letters making words, but the letters look different than the letters in the alphabet. Is it a font thing? Does everyone see what I'm saying? Okay. So, but it's the same. It's the same. These are just thicker or like bolder.
You mean the ones on the left? Yeah, the fonts, the font sizes. Yes, they're different font sizes, but
On Lent.
Yeah. Do you see it?
oh, you're talking about right here? I see. So this Vav, are you talking about that versus the one over here that has?
Yeah.
So you see a Vav on one side that looks like that, another one that's a little smoother. Is that what you're talking about? Yeah, it's the same. It's just a slightly different font.
Which?
You should, if you learn these, you will be fine. This is the font that's the most common font used in all texts everywhere. And the way you know this is a Vav is it's got its little hook to the left, and it does not go below the line. So it can only be above. Whereas the noon over here goes below the line.
So the text to the right, like Israel right now, would probably be a
In that one, or one close to this, these are going to be very, very similar. But as far as detail, you don't have to be that detailed with things. Just it's really above the line, below the line, and little hooks where you have them, where you see them.
Yeah, like that one doesn't have the little hook.
So it's like, you see how on the bottom of the Y there's a dot? Meaning,
Oh, yeah, yes.
the dot does. It's just.
It's a Sarah in that case, but the shapes here are the shapes you'll see. They won't change. All right. Any other questions on that? If not, we're going to do a quick little bit of vocab and then we'll get out of here. You get to say some words today. Yes. Which comma thing? So this little guy right here, that's one of the letters. Which letter is that? Yod. Yeah. Now in this case, they're not acting. I'm showing this to you to let you know that these two are not acting like a consonant. They're going to be acting in this case like a vowel, but you don't know that yet. Yep. All right. Any other questions before we move on, and then we'll wrap it up? All right. Well, hopefully you'll remember. We good? You feel overwhelmed yet? You're only an hour in. It's okay. It's just the alphabet. It took you how long to learn your ABCs when you were a kid?
15 minutes.
Still working it. I am too. Exactly. So it will take a little time, but you can get there. As adults, you'll get this picked up pretty quick. Once you have your alphabet down, and we'll do vowels next week, you're well on your way. Okay. All right. Let's do a little bit of vocabulary. This list is in the locker, but I also made a video, YouTube video that you can go to where I sound each one of these out, give you an example sentence with them in them. So you can go in and just see it, hear it, replay it if you want, throw it in your headphones and learn them. But we're going to come through and I'll say the word first. I don't expect you to know how to pronounce it yet, but I'll say it. You can repeat it. And then that way you know how to pronounce your vocabulary that I'd like you to start learning, because by week 4 or 5, believe it or not, you're going to get a chance to do some actual reading and translated text into English with some help. I know it sounds crazy, doesn't it? And it won't be that hard to do. It's not as difficult as you think. I know she's looking at me like, you're crazy. So here's what I would say. Give it 4 or 5 weeks. If you hate it, drop it then. Just let it go then. But give it at least to the point where you get a chance to interact with the text yourself. And that's what I'd suggest. All right. So let's go with the first one here. And it is ach. We'll do the next one. Achim. Almost like Akeem Olajuwon. You remember him as a player? Do you remember that? No. Young people, Hakim, but Hachim. Achim. This is brother. Ach, or ach is brother. If you want to say brothers, you would add this little piece here. The im. Achim means brothers. Turns it into plural. Ach, brother.
I'm good. Like, it's how come the spelling's different?
It's not. This is actually the root word is the ach. And you see the same root right here.
Oh, I see. PL.
Plural.
PL, I thought we were like.
No, that's not right.
It's just the English of this is the plural form. Yep.
Like, yeah, no.
Thank you for asking that question, though. All right. Next one. Ish. Man or husband is what that one is. And if you want plural men, it's anashim. Anashim.
Shin.
Anashim. That would be men, plural.
E.
Have you noticed that? Mm-hmm. There's a pattern, just like in Spanish, you have feminine, masculine, and probably the pattern for plural and singular changes for feminine and masculine, I'm guessing. Yeah. Hebrew is the same way. So im is the masculine plural ending, and ot is the masculine or the feminine plural ending, but we won't learn that yet. All right. El means to or towards, like you're going to or towards something. Big word right here. Here is the core root letter of this word, amar. Amar means this word specifically means he said, but the amar, the aleph, what's this middle one? Anybody remember? Let me say the word for you again. Amar. What's the word? Mem, that's right. And the last ar. What's that one? Resh. That's right. Aleph, mem, resh. El. Amar, to say. Very common. This word introduces speech in the Hebrew Bible. When anyone speaking, there's some kind of speech happening, talking going on, you'll see Amar show up. So it shows up everywhere. It's just everywhere. So get to know that one. Those three letters together right there, very important. Amar. All right, next one. Let's see if anybody knows. Who knows the first letter? Aleph. And what is never right? So this is a
Ashin.
Shit.
Ashin.
she's got it. All right. So Robin, say it again. Asher. Yes, asher. Would you be okay if I picked on you for just a second? Everybody look at Robin. And I want you to say it again just like you did. Okay, see what she did with her head? No. Did you see it? Do it again. Okay, that is really important. If you ever have trouble putting an accent on a word correctly in the correct location, you just shake your head where the accent's supposed to be. Asher. Asher. Try it with any English word. Papi. And you put the accent where it belongs. When you shake your head, it's actually how they teach this language in the Near East. It's funny. So, asher. Asher. It is. Means that, which, or who. It's a relative particle. Again, a very important one. Yes. Papi. We might have to give you a Hebrew name. I think that's actually part of what we're going to do next week. 8. 8. You'll see here some people pronounce it et. Either one's fine. Doesn't matter. This is a direct object marker. Most of the time indicates the object of the sentence. Just marks out what's the object. Does anybody remember what the object is? What is it? No, object. Yes, something's being done to it. It's receiving the action, right? One's doing the action, one's receiving the action. The object is what receives the action. So this word indicates that the word that's following is the object of the sentence. But it can also just mean with sometimes. This letter, we should know this one now. It's what you live in. Bet. It's a bet. It's a preposition. Just a single letter is a preposition. In, on, with, among. It actually has probably 25 words you can put with it. You would say b. B. And it's what's called an inseparable preposition. It will always be attached to a word. Remember the first word we looked at? You're in your beginnings. Bereshit. The bet in the front is actually preposition. It's a full word, but it's attached to it. So it will always be attached. In, on, with, among. Again, it has a whole range of meanings with it. Don't worry about that part yet. You'll figure it out. All right, here you go. Bow. First one up here. Bow. Bow. Means to go or to come in. It's kind of an entry word. And it's a tricky one because oftentimes this little vav that you see right here loves to just disappear out of the word. Just disappear out. But learn that one, bow, that sound. Oh, thank you. Sorry. That's the frequency, how often these show up, kind of the range of how often these words show up. So you'll see that in the video when I put it together. All right, last few. Devar.
Dot.
Devar. If I take my little cursor and I put a dot in this bet, what happens to it? Dabar. Dabar. Gonna go to Dabar, right? That's kind of what happened with this particular word. It's a fun word. This one, dabar, or in this case, davar, it means a word or a thing or like a matter. It's as a noun form of this one. But this word has some interesting things that happen to it. Has anyone heard of Deborah in the Bible? Her name would be Devara. So her name has this meaning of like a word behind it. When you get to reading your Hebrew Bible, you'll find out that the Israelites wandered someplace for 40 years. Where was it?
Israel.
The desert. Believe it or not, it was the Midbar, Devar. They wandered in that thing, that desert. So Devar, it's a word you'll see often. All right, this guy down here. This one down, next one is halak. Halak. What was this letter? Hey. This is a hey. It's not closed up. If you notice, it's opened right here. Which was this one? Lamed. That's right. And this is a final form. Halak. Halak. This is a final form of which one? Halak. Ha. Ha. Ka.
Cop.
The kaf. The line, it extends below the line, and the final kafs, the final forms go below the line. Right here. The dalet, it would not go below the line. So this is the final form of the kaf. Halak means to go, to walk, walk about, kind of in that range. Does anybody know this letter? Let me draw where this would be the line right here. It does not go below the line. I have a yod. I have a what?
Votes.
Not a yod. A yod would be right here. It would not come down to the line. This is a vav. A vav. So if you see just a plain vav, it means and. And it's conjunction. The. Could you get me the cream, the sugar? Cream and sugar.
Was that
It can stand alone. It can stand alone sometimes, but most often it's just attached to the front of a word to let you know it's and. All right. Somebody remember this one? Not a hey, but a pet. Pet. So how do you think we would say this? And if this is a het and a lamed and a mem, but you want to take a shot? Halam. Halam. Yep. Halam. Now you are correct for this next word. Do you notice some similarities in the letters? Right here? We have the same root letters. So halam means to dream or he dreamed. Halom is a dream. So hopefully you're starting to see a couple little things in this, and that one set of letters together will form multiple meanings of the same word. The arrangement of vowels can turn it into a noun or an adjective or a verb. So you don't get too worried about the memorization of the vocabulary. Once you get a form of the word down, you've learned like 15 forms of the word. The moment you know kind of what the core characters mean, then you can formulate what you need out of the word as you read it in the sentence. So halam, to dream, halom, a dream. What letter is this one? That one is a yod. That is correct. And which one's this? Lamed. And this one does not go below the line, so it will be a dalet. So ya, la, da. Anybody like to take a shot of that one?
Yeah.
No, you're close. So remember, we read this way: ya, la, da. So let's put yalad. You got it. That's exactly it. Yalad, to give birth. Or in this case, he gave birth. That's what that word means. He gave birth. Which the Bible translates as he sired, right? Or he was begotten, something like that.
Kind of sounds like in the way that Spanish is phonetic. Is Hebrew also phonetic?
Very much so. Very much so. Yep. All right, we'll try the last one here and then we'll wrap it up. What's this one? Yod. What's this one? A shin. That's right. And what's this one? Tricky. It does or doesn't have a dot in it. Does not have a dot. So it's what sound? Vet. Vet. So we have, what's the sound here? Yeah.
Yeah.
Sound here. Sound here. The.
Yeah.
So anybody want to try to put it together? Yashav. Did you say Yashav? Yashav. Yashav means to sit or to dwell, or in this case, he sat. He sat. A little bit. All right. It's the vowel you can use to kind of figure it out. If you start just kind of putting an A in the mix of it, then yeah, you can kind of figure out what it is. But if you try it as an experiment, go home and just try to grab some English words and just try to put A vowels only in there. You'll start to find quickly that certain consonants don't connect well. They're hard to connect with just an A vowel. And you'll just naturally kind of want to put like an I vowel or an E vowel or an O or a U in there. They just kind of have this flow. Hebrew's the same way. But you can kind of figure out what the words are by just starting with an A vowel. So, any questions about that? Good. All right. So let's come back and just look at this real quick. We'll close it out. So this one has so it will be a B. We learned what this one is. These are pirate letters. And what sound does this guy make? Silent. That's right. And is sin ever right? So this is a shin. This is silent. This is actually part of the vowel here. And which one is this? This is the last letter. Ta. Ta. Be. Re. Sheet. We could say it together. Be. Re. Sheet. Say it a little faster. Better sheet. Better sheet. You just said your first Hebrew word. Better sheet. If you know your alphabet, you can pronounce this. Better sheet. Just for the nerds in the room, notice our first three letters. We have a bet, resh, and an aleph. You notice what the first three letters of the next word were? Bet, and resh, and the aleph, and they have zero relation to each other. But the Hebrew poet, he's messing with you. Bereshit bara. Do you hear how they have the same flow in them? When God, Elohim, at the head or at the start, created. It's there for the sound. You asked about that sound. That's what it's there for. So now you know a few of these letters. You can come back in and practice on some of that. And you'll see some of the final forms here. Here's a final form noon. Another final form noon right here. Final form cough, the end of the words. Anybody else see any other final forms in here? Right there. What's that? What's that letter? Got to remember to pet the cats. Sade. Sade. That's a final form. And you see how it falls below the line of the block letters there.
Kind of looks like a colon right next to the word you just were at.
This one right here.
What is that?
This is the mark of the end of the verse.
Okay. Like
That's not
spirit.
original.
Kind of. Not the old stuff like Dead Sea Scroll things, although in that they have started to use a system to indicate the end, but the Masoretes put this in.
So it's like a period.
Think of it like a period. I wasn't prepared to answer the question on what that one is. I think it's a meteg is what it's called, but it tells you the end. So right there, you'll see the end. There's another one right here.
Yeah. So, the letter. So I
Letter.
Which one? Right here? Yep, that's a final form. Which is which letter? Mem. Mem. Final form mem. You see it right there as well. This is how they would have been able to tell where the breaks in the words were. It only takes the final form at the end of a word.
Oh, okay. Okay. That makes sense.
So you have the spaces on these, but are some of the original text?
Some are very narrow spaces, but a lot of the Dead Sea Scrolls, they would got in the habit of putting a tiny dot between the words, just a tiny little dot to kind of tell you where the flow was. All right, so give you some things to practice and look at. You should be able to find some final forms in there and do some of that. You can do that on your own. So here's going to be the key by week 3 or 4, and we'll just be reviewing this for the first few weeks. Memorize the letter, its name, its sound, what it looks like. Practice doing some writing that will help you remember that. Commit to memory the Bagad Kafat letters that will become important later, and the gutturals. And I can't emphasize this enough, but vocab, 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 vocab.